Let's see if it's working here. Let's see. Nope. Where is my stream? Hold it. Okay. Okay. That was fun. I'm not the biggest fan of OBS Studio. I'm just going to go ahead and say that. I've had endless issues with OBS, and it's one of those things where it's like you can't really complain about it because it's free, but at the same time, it's like every time I'm trying to record something new, I end up with a new audio issue with something else. So anyway, it is Friday, March 7th, 2025. Sorry about the little bit of technical issues there if you came by earlier. It is now 5:28 p.m. I started this at about 5:15, I think, 5:13, something like that. Anyway, regardless of when it was, we are now here in Fallout 4, and we'll just go over the basically what's happened since I was last here and what we're looking forward to coming up in the future. Sorry, trying to become a little bit bitter. Oh my gosh. Okay, I don't know. I was very angry there for about 10 minutes, and I'm just kind of coming down from it right now. All of that audio issue actually comes from attempting to record some Dragon Age Origins, which I'll just say has not been going well. Okay, so what has come out since we last spoke? That was, let's check the day of that. That was February 21st. That was the last time we spoke. Since that time, I've had the Surveil video on Forward Station Tango come out. Maybe two. I think also the one on Gilman Lumber will come out since then. Along with that, there was the addendum to the Retcon video, and then there was also the lore video on Boulder City. So, basically, what I'm working on right now is the Fallout 4 lore video covering the Gunners. I was originally going to do 2 videos on that, one covering the Gunners in Nuka World, or basically within the Nuka World content, because some of those Gunners are right here in front of us. But along with that, I was then going to do just a full video on just the Gunners. But I've decided against that because the Gunners just really aren't all that fleshed out as a faction. And in fact, some of the most interesting stuff we get is from the Nuka World DLC. And so I don't really want to basically blow everything in that video and then come to talk about the Gunners as an organization and have not much to say about it. Now, I've covered the Gunners in their other locations, places like Vault 75, Vault 95. I always forget which one it is. But then along with that, Hallucinogen Inc., there are the ones who are within, like, where was it, Green Tech, Mass Fusion, the hospital downtown in Boston. But in all these cases, we get maybe a little bit of information about the mission that they're trying to work on there. It's much more in-depth here with Nuka World, and by much more in-depth, I mean, like, basically it goes from, like, a note to there actually being a little bit more fleshed out here. The Gunners are a lot like Talon Company in Fallout 3, in that they're fairly common in the Wasteland, but there's just really not that much about them. In fact, there's far more about the Raiders within the Commonwealth than there are about the Gunners. But regardless, I will still go ahead and produce a full video covering the organization, and I'm hoping to have that out by next Friday. Now, I'll try to get it out. I'll try to get it finished before then, so I can have it out for my members to watch early and my patrons. But again, it will hopefully launch publicly next Friday. Now, along with that, I am currently working on a Surveil video covering Black Mountain Ordnance Works. This is a revisiting of the site, but it's not just going to be a typical Surveil video where I visit the site, talk about everything that's there. I'm also going to talk about the 3 quests to get into the domes. Yeah, no, the Gunners definitely, I mean, they're basically just another raider organization that's a little bit more organized than the typical raiders. And I mean, the thing that really makes them stand out more than anything else is simply the fact that they've got their blood type tattooed on their foreheads. Why don't we go ahead and we can... There we go. Oh. Using the console command to turn off AI detection, and it misspelled it. We'll go up there and we can see them talking.
No one investigates that signal until this place is secure.
Without them shooting
at us. If I see anyone violate protocol and enter that transit station before we're set, I'll have your head. Now pick up the pace. I want to be able to report back to Cypress ASAP.
like I said, though, they've got their blood type tattooed on their forehead. In her case, I think it was a B positive. It's kind of hard to tell if they're moving. But regardless, that's for the purposes of first aid. So it's easier to know what type of blood to administer to someone. This guy doesn't have one. Maybe he's a newer recruit. Let's see here. It's definitely... I've seen it on others other than just Kaler there. I mean, a lot of them in Quincy. I mean, Quincy is probably the location for the gunners that has more lore than just about anywhere else in the vanilla game.
What?
Again, she doesn't know who's shooting her. I'm just trying to kill her so I can take off her beret to see if there's something else there. Is it... Can't remember. I've been playing 3 in New Vegas so much lately that I don't always remember exactly what the commands are to move people around. Come on. Ugh. There we go. Trying to see if I can see her forehead. Nope. Either it's not there or it's covered by the hair. I'm not sure. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I like Fallout 76. It's got a lot of great lore to it. It's one of those things where, like, personally, the fact that it's a live service game doesn't appeal to me that much. And I've always played the game solo, even though it is a multiplayer game. But there is a huge amount of lore there, and a lot of it's actually very good. But regardless, so yeah, again, the video on the gunners. And so what I was trying to speak about before with the video covering the Black Mountain Ordnance Works is I'm going to cover the 3 quests to get inside the domes. Basically the one to get into... one of them I will have to cover basically on a character that's already done it, but the other 2 I'm going to basically create a new character in order to do them. Because the one where you can't do it as a vanilla character and necessarily do it as a vanilla character, you have to be doing the invaders from... I can't remember the exact name of it. It's basically the one where there's aliens constantly attacking. And that's the way you can get into Homer Saperstein's TNT dome. Of course, Homer Saperstein. First of all, it's like it's clearly play on Homo sapien, but along with that, Saperstein is the name of Jean Ralphio in what's it called? Parks and Recreation. John Ralphio Saperstein and Mona Lisa Saperstein. Yeah, 2 insufferable people on Parks and Rec. So that's something that it always reminds me of. But anyway, I will produce that one. I'll try to get it out sometime next week as well. Now, in terms of what's been going on in Dragon Age, because I've been trying to get the 4th video in the Dragon Age series out, I have recorded it fully twice, only to discover that the video that I've recorded is entirely black, with all the audio but none of the video. Along with that, basically I've been finding that anytime I try to film it with OBS Studio, it crashes. And again, anytime I film it with NVIDIA, their built-in software for their GPUs, it crashes. It doesn't actually crash the game. That's the one where it gives me just a black screen. I'm trying to figure out the way to move forward with this, because again, it's constantly fighting an uphill battle and getting nothing out of it. It's one of those things where I'm really hoping that it's just a consequence of the location and the fact that it's in the middle of a giant rainstorm and there's a huge battle raging, that maybe with the way the game works, it's an old engine, a very proprietary engine. I was actually reading up on this over the past few days, because I was trying to figure out if they were ever going to produce a... they did the Mass Effect Legendary Edition recently. Recently, it was like 3 years ago at this point, almost. But regardless, I was going to see if they were going to do something like that with Dragon Age. And from what I can see, they are likely not going to do that, because Dragon Age and Dragon Age 2 were both built in what's called the Eclipse engine. It was an in-house engine developed by BioWare. And from what I've read, there are not that many people left at the company that understand how to use the Eclipse engine. And so it's unlikely that we're going to see a Legendary Edition of Dragon Age and Dragon Age 2. Just ignore the extremely deadly, highly accurate robot walking brainlessly into a car. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and so the other issue that comes with, and I've discovered this to be the problem when I've been recording Mass Effect and now Dragon Age, is that when recording with the NVIDIA software, the audio will get out of sync over time. I think it's something to do with the loading. And it's actually the black screen issue with Dragon Age is something that I've experienced before when recording Fallout New Vegas, Weirdly enough, not Fallout 3, because I would assume that they would both share the issue, but I've not seen it to be an issue with Fallout 3. But what I've discovered in Fallout New Vegas is that if I load a save after having played a little bit and done some recording, then I will not be able to record it anymore. I will have to reboot the game and load that save upon opening the game. Otherwise, it will not record. And I think, again, this is completely like a novice looking in. I think that effectively what's happening is that the game is effectively booting up like a new instance of itself, and so the software doesn't really know what to lock onto. The recording software, I mean. So that, I think, is what's going on there. I don't know if that's the case. But regardless, again, Dragon Age and Fallout New Vegas both have this issue. Now, it's one of those things where it's like, I've got a third potential recording software, and that is Steam's built-in recording software, which I think I can show you here. It's something they introduced fairly recently. Yeah, I used the console commands to level this guy up to 25, so I'd have a fresh character going to Nuka World. But if you check out here, this is the in-game recording. It's something where it's like, it works, and it actually works fairly well. The problem is that the Steam version of Dragon Age Origins doesn't work for me. I've talked about this before a little bit, but I've got 3 versions of Dragon Age Origins. One of which is on Steam, one of which is on GOG, and one of which is on EA. And the Dragon Age on Steam does not launch, the Dragon Age on GOG does not install, and the Dragon Age on EA does work, but again, as the one that's giving me all these recording issues. So unfortunately, I can't use Steam's built-in software to record footage in a game that's not installed via Steam. I mean, I know there's ways you can boot games that aren't Steam games from within Steam, so maybe I'll look into that and see if that'll work. But regardless, I'm really hoping that, again, this is a temporary issue with this one setting that won't be the problem going forward. Otherwise, this is going to be quite a slog just to get through Dragon Age Origins. I'm hoping that Dragon Age 2 will not face the same issue. I'm just going to see if I can... Again, I've got AI detection turned off, so there we go. Maybe she'll stop walking into that car now. Anyway. Okay, so in terms of the Gunners, I'm going to be covering all of their locations, obviously their headquarters at the GNR Plaza, far to the south, and everything that has to do with the Gunners within Nuka World. And we're not talking about just the Gunners that are supposed to be in Nuka World. Those are the ones that are hanging out on top of the chunk of the highway, and that most, like an enormous number of them, are now dead within the bottling plant. I'm also going to be talking about the Gunners that basically deserted and fled to Nuka World, tried their luck in the Gauntlet and are now dead. And the Gunner that actually made it through the Gauntlet and is now I think there's actually 2 of them that are fighters within the arena within Nuka World. So, hey, Captain Sugarfree, and sorry to all of you who have not yet greeted. Welcome, Joe. Welcome, Chicken Warrior, and welcome, Captain Sugarfree 7567. I hope you all have had a good week. I apologize for being as late as I was. Again, technical difficulties and all that. So, after the Gunners, the next video, I have not yet decided as to what that's going to be in terms of Fallout 4 coverage for this month. Let me go ahead and I can check the polls real quick and see if anything has changed there. They should be easily accessible. I'll check Patreon first. Let's see. There it is. Yeah, no change there. 2 votes for Gunners, 1 for Covenant. And let's check the Discord. Where is it? Next lore video. I've got 2 for Covenant and 2 for Raiders of the Commonwealth. So it looks like Covenant will likely be the site that I cover. So, Covenant is a location. It's this little... If you haven't seen it, it's like basically this little community. I think it's right up over here, if I remember correctly. It's here or here? Or here. I know it's right on the edge of a pond. It's one of these 3 locations. I don't remember where it is off the top of my head, but basically they're extremely anti-synth, and they've got this test they think can help them identify synths. Anyway, it's been a while since I've encountered that lore, so I'm not going to speak too much on it, because honestly I don't remember too much about it, but I will make sure I learn all of it again in order to talk about it. So then, again, next month will be Fallout 76. I have not yet decided which topics I'm going to potentially cover there, but we'll get to that. At some point, I will need to... What the heck? I'm sorry, one sec. My wife is texting me. Okay. So yeah, I need to cover the Gleaming Depths at some point. I've yet to actually even encounter the Gleaming Depths. Okay, casting your vote a little later. Yeah, so again, there's still time. We can figure out what the next tough video will be. It could end up being the what's it called? Raiders of the Commonwealth. It's unlikely to be Jamaica Plain, which has gotten no votes. So, all right. So, what to talk about with the Gunners here? Again, there's not too much. We've already spoken about it for the most part. I need to nail down more of where Nuka World is, because it's one of those things where I know it's somewhere west of the Commonwealth, but I don't know exactly where, if there's clues as to where it's located properly. My bet is that there are.
Shit. They're gonna die.
Oh yeah, there's the Nuka World theme music playing there.
Goddamn raiders. I should have known.
I'll leave this alone for the moment. But yeah, we can head down to Gunner's Plaza. Just because then when you go to Nuka World, you got to go through the whole gauntlet situation and all that. You know, it's funny. A little while back, I saw what was the topic of conversation there. I think it was Oxhorn talking about some form of content of Fallout that he was not looking forward to at the time, but ended up loving it. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. But basically, I had the same issue with Nuka World when it was first announced. Because basically, I was looking for a continuation of like the story here in the same way that we got with Broken Steel in Fallout 3. And so when I saw this kind of campy aesthetic and the fact that we were going to a theme park, I was not all that excited about it. I was looking for something darker, something grittier, something potentially with the main factions involved in it. And it was not something that I thought would work for me. But I ended up going out and actually doing the content, and it's a lot of fun. And it's one of those things where it's got those little worlds you can explore out there. And they're actually fairly interesting. I don't know why I felt the need to shoot these things. They can't see me right now. I should probably turn on detection. This isn't all that fair to them. But regardless. I feel like it needs to be fair. We're just walking across the Commonwealth right now. But yeah, Nuka World is definitely far more interesting than I originally gave it credit for. Especially just all the little stories that you find there. Finding what's his name? John Caleb Bradburton, the founder of Nuka-Cola. Still alive, well, at the very least his head still alive there. Basically in one of the early stages of human body preservation, when they were able to preserve the head and nothing else. That's always an interesting form of science fiction. But if you ever... what's that book actually called? I've got it in here somewhere. Give me 1 second, I'll pull it up. No, it wasn't Kindle. Was it? Fuck that he's part of the game. Yeah. You never know, because it's one of those things where with the Fallout TV show, they made it the implication, not even really the implication. Okay, it depends on the canonicity of the extras that came with the Fallout TV show. And if the extras of the Fallout TV show are to be taken as completely canon, then yes, Nuka-Cola, the corporation, was within the Enclave. Let me see here. Where did I... Oh, yeah, there it is. Except for... This is... Okay, it's the We Are Bob books. If you've ever encountered those, it's a science fiction series where basically a guy gets really wealthy, signs a contract with a cryogenics company, and then is immediately killed. Basically, he walks outside and gets hit by a car, Yeah, no, Fallout 4 is great. I've not played a full playthrough of it in a long time, and I need to. I've also been meaning to go through the Elder Scrolls games again, because I was realizing the last time I did that was 2020. So it's been a good 5 years since I've really gone through that stuff. But anyway, so yeah, the We Are Bob books, the guy gets hit by a car, and so immediately they preserve him. Well, it turns out all that they preserve is his head, and I think actually specifically just his brain. Or maybe they preserve the entire body, but the only thing that they end up saving is the brain. And effectively, the communities of the future, the human societies that survive, only use the brain and basically use them as computer cores. And so he finds himself as the computer core for a probe set to like explore the galaxy. It's interesting because it goes into the whole thing of where he's like building all these self-replicating machines and stuff like that. And anyway, that all came off of talking about John Caleb Bradburton's head being stored within Nuka World. Oh man, let's forget about this little town here. Unfortunately, there's not an enormous amount on this town. It's in this flooded area above the dam. But what's it even called? Is it Forest Grove Marsh? I should look into that more. Because again, I don't think there's actually much in-game to it, but I'd like to see if there's an actual town that potentially corresponds to. I don't think that there is. There are plenty of dams in Massachusetts and around Boston as well, but they're all quite small, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a little while since I've really gone over the maps. I think the last time was really Natick, was when I was really looking over the Boston area. But yeah. I've been going over more of the Warhammer 40,000 books. Specifically, I just finished Priests of Mars, and I'm now on Lords of Mars. I enjoyed Priests of Mars more than I've enjoyed Lords of Mars so far, but both of them are interesting, both of them covering the Mechanicus. I bought a copy of It Takes Two, because the new game Split Fiction just came out, and my wife was hearing about that, so we ended up looking at it, and she saw, I then showed her the what's it called, the trailer for It Takes Two, and that interested her, so that's probably what I'll be doing tonight, is playing It Takes Two. Which, if you haven't seen it, is a co-op game where you're playing doll versions of a husband and wife that were getting divorced, and their crying daughter magically basically turned the dolls into her parents, and they have to like work through puzzles to fix their relationship. So, let's see. Where am I going here? I think, actually, is it down here? It's somewhere south of here. So, let's head south. It's funny, I know the map of 76 like the back of my hand, in terms of where everything is. But Fallout 4, I generally know where things are, but it's also one of those things where it's kind of like, when I say general, I know it's like, I know that Gunner's Plaza is somewhere in basically the southwestern Commonwealth. Whereas, like, I could tell you the specific location of Fort Atlas, or the Allegheny Asylum turned Fort Defiance, or Bogtown, or Alpine Cabins. So, let's see. This, oh yeah, it's a police station. Control. No. But there's I thought there was a... Sorry, I've got to confirm this real quick. I think that there's one of those Eddie Winter holotapes here. Yeah. I knew it. That's why I was thinking police station. Fallout 3's map, it's one of those things where it was the first game I played in the Fallout series. I mean, and technically speaking, I played 1 and 2, but I did not get anywhere in them. Because I was playing them the summer before Fallout 3 came out, and I just, like, I did not understand what I was playing. Because growing up, I never played any classic role-playing games. I played, like, I played, oh, yeah. I played some ARPGs like Diablo and Diablo 2 and Titan Quest and stuff like that, but I'd never played a CRPG, so when I got into Fallout I was like, what is going on here? I did not understand what I was doing. So, am I going anywhere near the right direction? I think that's it right there, maybe. I'm remembering more of where it is. And I remember that it's basically northwest of Jamaica Plain, so I think we're actually getting pretty close. It's also not far from West Roxbury, I think is the town. So, we'll see soon enough. But yeah, the Fallout 3 map, I still struggle with it now, because I did not really learn it at the time. I've been getting better as I've been making more videos in Fallout 3, but it is definitely something that eludes me. That being said, Fallout New Vegas, I actually know a lot more about that. Even though I would say that I've probably spent the least time of the modern 3D Fallout games, I've probably spent the least amount of time in Fallout New Vegas. But despite that, I know the map better, just because the map is, first of all, like, so much of what's there is based on the real world. And second of all, because they make you basically take a route to get to Vegas, rather than it just being kind of a freeform go over wherever the hell you want all the time, you get to know where things are. It's definitely a much different situation. Like Fallout 3, yeah, they give you basically the mission to go find your father. But in Fallout New Vegas, it's one of those things where that hard northern barrier of either going past like all of the cazadors on the west, or going past all the Death Claws in Quarry Junction, it really makes you go first south and then east and then north. So you really get to see all those sites along the way. So yeah, here we are at Gunners Plaza. Told you I'd find it. Let's head on in here. This, of course, is the former GNR Plaza. I wonder if that's where they got their name from. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like Gunners is obviously a name you could easily use for any organization that's like a paramilitary organization. But at the same time, I mean, this is GNR, which you could easily have be an abbreviation for Gunner. I don't think that there's been any actual origin given for the Gunners. Actually, sorry, GNR is Galaxy News Radio. This is GNN, Galaxy News Network, which again also has 2 N's in it, so you never know. Let's go ahead and unlock that. Oops, misspelled that. There we go. And this is interesting because this is the desk where that newscaster is. I'm going to need to turn that radio off before it gets a copyright strike in here. There we go. Okay. This is the news studio where that gentleman who's reading the news at the beginning of Fallout 4 is, with this backdrop here. So, anyway, though, I think that was Captain Wes. Yeah, so this is the head of the Gunners here at Gunner Plaza at the very least. It's one of those things where, like, this is easily the Gunners' headquarters, but, like, I don't know if he's the head of the Gunners here in the Commonwealth, or if he's supposed to be the head of the Gunners overall. I think the general implication, and again, so part of this, I need to get slightly deeper into the lore, because there is a little bit of lore to be found here. And I'll say that mainly I've been covering, in terms of research, I've been looking at the Gunners out in Nuka World, so I need to look more in this stuff here. This is just about them infiltrating the Hyde Park Raiders nearby. But basically, from what I remember in terms of looking at what they've actually got available here in terms of notes and things like that, the implication is that the Gunners exist potentially outside the Commonwealth as well. So I'll need to look into that stuff a little bit more, but again, the real sources of lore that you get from the Gunners are effectively 3 locations. Like, again, there's little minor bits of lore. I'm going to set off all these mines. Well, they can't detect me. There's basically 3 sites for lore for the Gunners, aside from like the little tiny minor sites. The little tiny minor sites being places like Vault 75, Vault 95, the hospital downtown, Hallucinogen Inc., all those kind of places. The places where you really find actual proper lore on the Gunners is places like Quincy, places like GNR Plaza, I guess Gunners Plaza is the actual name of the location that you get to go to, and Nuka World. That's where you get the most lore on the Gunners. And there's just not that much to it. But again, it's one of those things where it's always a question of, if these guys are mercenaries, who's really paying them? Along with that, I mean, you get a little bit of when you can see like contracts that they actually have, or when they're talking about contracts that they actually have. But part of it too is there's a weird gameplay aspect to it where, like, there's no chance that you, as the sole survivor, can ever hire the gunners. They are effectively to you nothing more than a hostile raider organization.
Hey.
It is kind of fun when you talk to people that are supposed to be enemies. They don't really have anything to say, but anyway. So, yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to have to go over the stuff that's here a little bit more, but I'm pretty close to being ready to write the script for this one. And the nice thing about making lore videos on factions like the Gunners is that I don't need to really do any real-world research on anything. Like Boulder City, I had to learn the history of Hoover Dam and Boulder City in order to make that one. So I should be able to get this one done fairly quickly. Tomorrow, Sunday, and maybe Monday or Tuesday I'll be done with it. The script, I mean. I still will have to record the audio and all that. So we'll see exactly how long it takes. But yeah, looking forward to getting through the lore on this one. And it'll be kind of like a capstone sort of a thing, because so many of the lore videos I've done on Fallout 4 have been in order to basically cover all the little locations where the Gunners hang out. So we'll be able to move on to different things at that point. And now, actually, Covenant is a location that I've had people request that I cover for a while now, so I'm actually looking forward to really getting to cover that stuff. Let me see here real quick, because I know that I've actually got a list of all the videos that I've covered in order to cover that have ended up covering the Gunners. Give me 1 second and I'll find it real quick so I can tell you exactly how many there are. Let's see, Fallout 4 lore. Okay, so Vault 75, MacReady, covering Robert MacReady covers the Gunners to a minor extent, but given that he was a gunner for a short period of time. I think I'll need to look into that, but I feel like the Medford and Malden, yeah, Medford and Malden does have a connection to the Gunners, but I think only because of Vault 75. Quincy, obviously. And, yeah, Vault 95, I think, yeah, Vault 95, Hallucinogen and Mass Fusion all have covered the Gunners. So, this will be like the capstone on that project. After that, potentially onto, hey Gary Watkins, welcome to the stream. If you missed it earlier, I know you've been watching the Dragon Age videos. I've been having recording difficulties on Dragon Age Origins. So the fourth video is taking a little bit longer. Like I was saying earlier, I've recorded it twice now fully. And so I'm going to try again and hopefully get it to record an actual proper video, not a screen. Have a good weekend, Captain Sugar Free. I assume that's what the CPT is for. Have a good weekend. So yeah, let's see, what else? There's been a little bit of news on Fallout, the TV show. People have been putting up more shots of the sets. I've been trying to avoid them myself just because I don't want to basically get any spoilers before the season comes out. And because of that, because I know there are going to be people here who don't want to know anything about it. Yeah, the Battle of Ostagar is specifically what I've recorded twice now. But I don't know why it's an issue. I think it might be because there's a storm going on in the background, because there's a battle going on in the background. But I've been running into constant bugs, crashes, and black screens recorded. So hopefully I can get to it Saturday or Sunday. Yeah, no, yeah. It is very impressive to actually see these locations in real life. But yeah, if you haven't, I'll just the most basic level of thing I'll say on the Fallout series that I won't go any deeper, is that it does go into New Vegas, which if you were not aware of that, you should have been if you watched the end of the first season. Yeah, this is all stuff that's not even actually related to the Gunners. This is just pre-war stuff. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the second season as well. So the show, the Fallout TV show, is what actually introduced me to Walton Goggins as an actor, and I've really been enjoying everything else I've been seeing him in since that time. Specifically, I've watched him in Righteous Gemstones, which if you haven't seen it, it's a great series. If you go to a mega church, it might offend you a little bit. But Walton Goggins plays a great character in that. He's Uncle Baby Billy. Basically, he was a child star named Baby Billy, and he's never dropped the name Baby Billy, so now he's a white-haired 70-something-year-old man called Baby Billy. It's great. Along with that, I watched him in Vice Principals, and what else? I feel there's multiple additional shows that I'm looking forward to watching with Walton Goggins in it, just because he's a great actor. But anyway, so yeah, I'm not going to say anything more about the Fallout series in terms of the pictures specifically that I've seen, and because I don't want to spoil it for anybody who's looking to avoid that. But again, we're looking at New Vegas. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do give us a canonical ending to Fallout New Vegas. I haven't seen anything specifically on that as to whether or not it will. But it's hard to imagine that it won't. I mean, right? Because we got the second Battle of Hoover Dam, and that has a logical outcome to it. And at the end of the first season, we see a crashed NCR vertibird in the streets of New Vegas. But I mean, that doesn't technically mean anything. It could be that thing is crashed in a part of Vegas that people typically don't go to, and that the NCR just left it there, or maybe it happened recently. Maybe it's something completely unrelated. Or maybe it is something left over from basically the pullout of the NCR, and it was something that went down, and Caesar's Legion just ignored it. I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, though, definitely looking forward to that. So, again, Gunners, Covenant, and then in Fallout 76, why don't we go ahead and we can start brainstorming some of the videos to cover there. If you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see me cover in Fallout 76, we can talk about that. Let's see, cover the ghoul stuff coming to 76 when the time comes. So, the ghoul stuff. If you haven't seen it, you are going to be able to become a ghoul. It may even be live at this point. I actually don't know. I've been spending time in 76 for the past 2 weeks, but entirely just for the purposes of recording surveil videos. So I actually don't know if it is yet live. Let me see here. In fact, I don't think it is, because otherwise normally it pops up a quest, or you get something where it's like there's a new radio signal or something like that. Let me see here. I'll check the Fallout channel on X. Okay, March 18th. Season 20, Glow of the Ghoul, begins March 18th. So yeah. Welcome to the Stream 7. Hope you've had a good week. So, I'll say this. I will definitely cover it. But I am probably one of those rare people who does not care to become a ghoul. Now, I know that there's a lot of people out there that have been for a long time asking for the ability to be a ghoul or even a super mutant or something like that. But for me, the name of the game in Fallout has always been avoiding the situations that turn you into a ghoul or a super mutant. So, I don't really care that much about becoming a ghoul, but I will definitely record the content there and tell everybody about it when the time comes. Now, I will definitely also cover the Gleaming Depths. Like I was saying earlier in the stream, if you missed it, I have yet to actually encounter that lore, just because I've been working on making these other videos, and I just have not had the time to get into that specifically. But like I've said in the past as well, I've also gotten my wife a copy of Fallout 76, so I should hopefully now be able to get into the world and get some actual, not into the world, sorry, into the like the main bunker there, and or whatever it is that lies beyond that spinning Protectron, or not Protectron, Sentry Bot torso that won't let you shoot its back. Rules are cool, but you might become a super mutant if you let us. Yeah, it'd be interesting, because it's one of those things where, like, I feel like it'd be more interesting if there were positives and negatives to all these things, but whenever I see the stuff about ghouls, it seems like the only real negative that they give you is that your character looks kind of ugly. But, like, in reality, and so it's one of those things, too, where I don't know, I've not actually taken in any of the preview content on the ghoul stuff, so I don't know if they've maybe added that chemical that they need from the Fallout TV series in order to not go feral or something like that. I do know that there's the potential to reverse the ghoulification process, which I don't like that, because it feels lore-breaking to a, like, extreme extent. Like, I get it for the purposes of gameplay, but I don't like that they've included it in the game. At least that's what I've heard, is that it's in there, and I really hope that's not the case. Because if it is, do you really think that like most of the people in the Fallout universe that have become ghouls wouldn't take the opportunity to turn themselves back into a standard person? I mean, I'm sure that there are people out there. There are some of them that enjoy being like nearly 300 years old or whatever. But I think a lot of them would probably be much happier healing themselves and not going feral and perhaps dying a natural death instead. But yeah, super mutant, like there would have to be some extreme outcomes to that, right? Like you'd have to, if they actually did it right, and if we're not talking about something like Fox or Virgil, then you would have to have your intelligence drop to the point where, like, you wouldn't be able to use computers, right? You shouldn't be able to hack into anything or anything like that. And really, your fingers would probably be too big to actually use the keyboard to begin with. But my guess is they wouldn't have the guts to do something like that. So, that'd be, at least I don't think that that would be done properly. So, what else? My face looks like hamburger. Yeah. No, yeah. John Hancock's a fun character, but and he's also one of those characters that became a ghoul after using some sort of some sort of radioactive chem. Whether or not that's somehow related to the chemical that keeps ghouls sane, I don't know. We'll see. And honestly, I haven't been terribly thrilled with the introduction of that chemical in the Fallout TV series. But I'm going to withhold judgment until we see exactly what's going on with that. I think this is like, yeah, this is a guy that just blew himself up. Moon shining out here, that's great. I'd forgotten that this little event takes place. Anyway. Yeah, just because it's one of those things where if they explain that it's been introduced recently, the problem is that the ghoul has been taking this stuff for a long time in the show, which means that again it would have to have been around at least around the time of New Vegas. Now there have been people that have basically been like, yeah, well, I mean, there's plenty of things that are currently going on in the world in real life that you don't know are going on, and you would have no awareness of them because you're not within that community. And that's true, but at the same time, it's like we do encounter ghouls and like become close friends with them, specifically like Raul Tejada. And the fact is that we didn't see anything of him taking any sort of chemical or anything like that. So, I don't know. And speaking of Raul, I really do hope that they get Danny Trejo in the show. I think that would be just spectacular if they had him in the show playing Raul Tejada. That would be excellent. What else? Oh, a little bit of news in the Starfield front. Basically, people have been wondering what's going on. Why has there been no real... nothing really from the company on any new content. By the company, I mean Bethesda. Since September, I think it was, when Shattered Space came out. And they did come out yesterday. Yesterday, the day before, I can't remember. And basically say, big things coming this year. So, there is still content being produced here. Where is the bomb right now? Now that I've got detection turned off, I kind of want to see if you can see it, but I can't see it. Let me see what happens if I shoot his foot or something. Here.
Out there!
Okay, now
somewhere!
It's weird that it's just kind of flashing out of nothing. Anyway, though. Yeah, so we should be looking forward to some more Starfield content this year. Exactly what that entails, I don't know. If you haven't heard me talk about it before, I'm not really even looking for like a new story for Starfield. Like, that would be great. But really what I want to see them do with Starfield is simply flesh the world out more as it is. Specifically, these are things like, I want them to add the Radiant AI system back into the game, which, like, every Bethesda game for years had the Radiant AI system. This was, like, one of their big things that they produced for Oblivion back in 2006. And this is what gave AI much more of a feeling of realism, in that all these characters had schedules. They would go home at the end of the day, then they'd go to sleep. They'd get up in the morning, they'd go into work, they'd open the shops, all that kind of stuff. Now, that absolutely wound up with some bugs in the system. Oh, where he's going. Huh. But anyway, there would be issues where, like, the people would not open their shops at the right time and stuff like that. And sometimes not at all. And so you'd have to basically, like, pick the lock and go inside, and that's where you'd find the NPC standing behind the counter, who must have just been wondering all day, why is no one coming in? But at the same time, it's one of those things where it definitely added a lot of realism to the game, and it feels like something that's been lost. And it's particularly disappointing when you consider the fact that, like, you go walking around New Atlantis. Like, I spent a little bit of time in New Atlantis, obviously, because you have to go there for quests and stuff like that. But when I really took the time to investigate... Oh, that was a bottle cap mine. When I really took the time to investigate the lore surrounding... what's it called? Sorry, New Atlantis, and then I ended up investigating the city in full. It's missing a lot. For example, the restaurant Whetstone has one room with like 3 tables at it, and the proprietor of the restaurant sits in there all day, all night. She doesn't have a place that she goes back and sleeps in. She doesn't have a kitchen in this restaurant. There's no bathrooms in this restaurant. It's very bare bones. I would love it if they would go in there and they'd actually add in a kitchen, add in some people working in the back, or even if it's just like machines working back there. I'd want to see something like that. And then again, New Atlantis has residential towers, but they've got nobody living in them, really. I mean, they've got these nameless NPCs that wander all over the map and end up going in there at times. I'd like to see that the individuals actually have schedules, they have homes they go back to. And again, you could add 2nd and 3rd shifts. And one of the great examples of this is something that Obsidian did in Fallout New Vegas, where you go to the 188 trading post, and there's the father-daughter team, the Kerrs, and they both run the shop. And she runs it during the day, he runs the shop at night. I mean, they could easily do stuff like that in Starfield, they just don't.
Someone there?
So that's what I hope, is that
Get
they'll
me
go...
out of this thing.
You stay in there, Billy. I would like to see them do more with that kind of stuff in the world. Along with that, I want to see more of the government of places like the Freestar Collective. I want there to be more conversations that you can have with just general members of the government. Especially because, like, okay, I get it when you really just start the game and you're basically a nobody, you're just a miner from Argos mining. But if you complete the UC Vanguard questline, you are a hero of the United Colonies. You are like a Class 1 citizen. You are the best of the best. And yet, at the same time, you still can't have conversations with members of the government. It'd be great if, like, there was even just a system like that where it's like, okay, you are the person who saved us from Terramorph attacks. I want to talk to you, you know? And so it's like you get to actually talk to the Admiral in charge of the UC Navy. You get to talk to the General in charge of the UC Army. You get to talk to you do get to talk to the head of Health and Human Services. That's really one of the only ones that you actually get a proper conversation with. I want to talk to all of them. And, like, you do get conditional abilities to talk to some of them. Like the head of the Navy, you can talk to him during Sarah Morgan's... That's her name, yeah. Her main quest line, her companion quest line, I mean. You do get the opportunity to talk to her there. Along with that,
won't be able to pick this.
In the UC Vanguard questline, you get to talk to President Abello. But again, all these things are just kind of conditional, and I want that expanded on to where you can actually talk to these people more, and that the world is expanded out more in those areas. But the same thing's true in the Freestar Collective, where, like, we know about Ron Hope, we know about Benjamin Bayou, but I don't know about any of the rest of the Board of Governors there. We don't know how these people became governors. Is the Freestar Collective just some sort of oligarchy or something like that? Potentially even like a hereditary thing where it's passed down from father to son or something like that? To where we get the people that actually rule the Freestar Collective basically just being descendants of the previous rulers of the Freestar Collective? I don't know. That's the thing. I don't know how any of that system works for the Freestar Collective. Is it some sort of democracy? I don't know. I want to know more about these things. The world needs some serious expansion in those areas. So, yeah. No, I'd like to see some sort of... I'd like the idea of political scandals and espionage quest lines. And let's see, the other thing you said here... Massive point of interest additions. Yeah, no, absolutely. Because it's one of those things where my bet is that if you're just the average player who visits, I don't know, let's even say 30, 40 star systems and lands on half of the planets in those systems, you're probably not going to notice this being an issue, but being that I've literally visited every single planet in the settled systems, every single planet, every moon, landed on every one that you can land on, and have fully surveyed every one of those planets, I've seen those points of interest far too many times. And it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, when you have 1,000 planets, you're going to see a lot of those points of interest over and over again. But at the same time, I would love for them to actually, you know, just add more to it. Like you said there, add more points of interest. And along with that, and I think I've talked about this before a little bit, but make it so that the points of interest being near each other makes sense. Or where they are makes sense. Have more factories in towards the industrialized core of the settled systems. Have more just general kind of like exploratory science outposts the further out you get. And more like secret outposts where the different governments are running their own secret operations and secret research at these distant outposts. And I'd even like it if there was I don't know. I was about to say that if we had more variations on them, because basically it is the case currently that you go into one of these like scientific outposts and you've seen the exact same thing as you'll see on any other world that has one of those scientific outposts. But at the same time, I would only really like there to be variations on those outposts if we knew that they would exist on specific worlds. Because this is something that I've thought about doing is, yeah, I've created a full list of all those planets, all the life that can be found on them. I've linked it before. I'll see, when I end this stream, I'll go ahead and put the links in the description of the stream here, so you all can see that as well. Where I've got full spreadsheets of all the flora, all the fauna, all the different resources you can find on all the different planets. But I'd like it to be the case where where was I? I was talking about, yeah, so I wanted to do surveil videos on Starfield, but the problem is that unlike 76, I can hide forever because I have got the game not allowing you to see where I am. Oh, he can still cripple me. What was I saying there? I wanted to do surveil videos, but it's kind of impossible when you can't tell where anything's going to be at any time. So that's definitely an issue there. Like if I want to tell you, it's like, oh yeah, you can go into this pharmaceutical company's outpost. It's like, okay, but is it going to actually be there when you get there? And the answer is, I don't know. So this kind of reminds me of the statue of King Arthur that you can see in the UK. I can't remember where it is. I think it's on the coastline somewhere. But in that case, it's actually intentionally like that. Because King Arthur is a mythical figure, and so they didn't really depict him fully. Yeah. I do love, again, so it's one of those things where I complain about Starfield, but I do love the game. And I love exploring it and getting to actually, you know, land on these planets and these moons and build outposts and stuff like that. But there's definite room for improvement. And one of those areas is definitely in outpost construction and in the supply chain and how that stuff works. Because if you haven't heard me talk about it before, I tried to set up a supply network that was capable of collecting every collectible resource, and it was impossible. And I've put up a diagram of it before, but basically the goal was to funnel all these resources back to Schrodinger 3, which is a nice habitable planet that's also home to, I think, okay, it's home to one exotic farmable material that I think comes from animals. And there's another planet, I think, in the Schrodinger system or close by that does a farmable mineral, a unique one. And so I was trying to funnel everything back there, but it's one of those things where resources just do not move up supply chains properly. It's like if you want to get helium-3 from point A to point B and from point B to point C, it just does not work. You can get it from point A to point B, and you can even get it from point A to point C, but it just does not, the connection lines just do not work. And it's also one of those things, too, where it's like, you would easily have it be the case where if you had something producing at a higher rate than something else, then you'd effectively fill up like a shipping depot in order to get that stuff out, and then leave no room for the other part that you're trying to produce and get out. And so it's one of those things where like they need to do a lot more work on the logistics side of Starfield as well. So, and one other thing I'd like to see in the Starfield Outpost is more fine control on the placing things within the outposts. It's very frustrating to try to be putting down like a divider screen that you'd see. Really, it's supposed to be like between desks and like cubicles, I typically put it down if I'm trying to like create a separation barrier to like hide a bed so that someone would have a little bit of privacy. But it would like, it's one of those things where it's like you've got it and you're setting it down and it's like, this is looking down from above. And it's like, okay, I want it like this, but it's like this. So I flip it and it goes like that. And so I go, okay, it's not quite right. So I flip it and it goes back to, and so it's like, so it's just, give me like degree or even like 5 degrees of control and like slot it, you know, move it like that instead of just the full 360 degrees of freedom thing. Some fully unique locations in the game, but there's only 30-ish compared to... Yes, no, that's absolutely true. And they're mostly quest-related. Like the sulfur mine on Kazal, for example, which is specifically related... That one is actually one of the more interesting ones, because it is... It's a location that's there to basically flesh out the history of the characters within Constellation. That site is there because of the recruitment of... man, it's been a long time since I've... played Starfield. Andreja or Andrea. It's one of those things where so it's funny. The characters in Constellation call her Andreja, but it's an Eastern European name that should probably be pronounced Andrea. Rotation speed in the settings. Okay, I'll look into that. Oh yeah, again, that was a location that was set up as a cover for Argos extractors as they were harvesting one of the artifacts that was hidden there on that world. And they needed something to hide it. And so Argos extractors built what was ostensibly a sulfur mine, even though sulfur is extremely common. And no one in the right mind would set it up on the outskirts of what's it called? Man, some of the names are starting to slip from my memory just because I haven't played it in a while. Give me 1 second here. House Varun. It's on the outskirts of House Varun space, and so you occasionally end up dealing with zealots. So yeah, no one in the right mind would set up something, a colony to harvest a resource as common as silver in that area if there weren't that artifact that they were actually going after. Alright, I think we're actually getting pretty close to an hour here. So if you all have things you'd like to see covered in Fallout 76, go ahead and put them into the comments. We'll spend the next couple minutes here just kind of brainstorming about the potential videos that we'll cover there. So obviously there's some very obvious sites that could be covered. Do I have a pen here? I'll remember them. I was going to write them down, but I don't have a pen apparently. Praise the Space Snake. Speaking of which, Gleaming Depths, potentially a site that I could cover in a lore video. I do need to cover Atlantic City. That needs a lore video, and it also needs a couple of surveil videos to cover both of the new sites there. What else? I need to cover the Blood Eagles at some point. I need to cover Charleston. There are some remakes I still need to do on some of the earlier cities. So far I've already remade Grafton, Morgantown, and Point Pleasant, but I still need to remake Welch, Beckley, and potentially Lewisburg, and maybe the Watoga videos. The main issue with the Watoga videos is that I spoke incredibly quickly in them and not very clearly, and so I've gotten many comments on those videos where people just don't understand what I'm saying. Hey Night Spearhead, welcome to the stream. You're here in the last few minutes where we are currently talking about potential topics to cover next month when we're covering Fallout 76. Again, so far I've got Gleaming Depths, Atlantic City, the Blood Eagles, and we're trying to think of Charleston, and again remakes of some of the other early city videos. Glad you're off for the week. If you are off for the week, most people, there are definitely, I know for a fact that there are people who come into the streams where they're working Saturday and Sunday too. So yeah, Blood Eagles are fun, but they're kind of like the Cult of the Mothman, where there's a little bit of lore on them, but in the case of the Cult of the Mothman, there's definitely more lore than there is in the Blood Eagles, but a lot of it is stuff that comes from before the war and stuff like that. So the Hornwright Company, that could be something. I feel like... Okay, so I did actually cover them to a minor extent. And so I could definitely expand on that, though, now that Penelope Hornwright is here. And so that's a video I also need to remake as it is. Because I did a video on Bromwell and the mining magnates of Appalachia. But that's a really old video at this point. We're talking 2020? Early 2020? Something like that. And again, it's one of those ones that came before I really nailed down the style of video that I do now. So that's definitely something that needs coverage. Arctos Pharma. That's definitely another site that I could cover. That would probably be a shorter one, but yeah. Let's see. Because, yeah, again, when I covered the mining magnates, I didn't just do the Hornwright Company. I also did the Garahans. And I'm really hoping that we're going to get more. And, again, I haven't done any of the Gleaming Depths content, so there could be more on the mole miners in there, and I'm just not aware of it. But I want to see the actual... Like, my hope... my hope of all hopes in terms of the mole miner lore is that I'm going to find, like, Vivian Garahan or one of her sons as the ruling monarch of the mole miners. Because basically, if you're not aware of the lore, the Garahan family was much kinder to the human miners of Appalachia, while Hornwright Industrial went full in on the auto miners. So I'd like to think that we could have the Queen Vivian down there somewhere in the mines. Of course, I think she was already probably in her... I assume she was something in her 50s or 60s by the time of the war, and it's now been another... What are we up to now? 30 years at this point? No. It's now 2105. So yeah, 23 years. 28 years. It's been 28 years since the war. Yeah, I do need to talk about the Ultracite Titan. In fact, I haven't talked about Nuka World on Parade at all. So that's another one I could potentially cover. It's kind of this weird thing where I'm still... Again, I talked about this a little bit earlier, where I had this feeling that I didn't want to cover... I didn't want to even play the Nuka World stuff in Fallout 4 when it originally came out. And I still... Even though I enjoyed Nuka World, I still had a little bit of that lingering feeling when the Nuka World content was added to Fallout 76. Oh, should have figured that would have killed me. Yeah, crazy how long F76 has been out. It's been out since, I think, November of 2018. So it's been out for quite some time. Where is this going to take me back to? I haven't saved in a long time. It'll be interesting to see. Oh, right. Hey, I don't know what to put. 803? Talked about the state of the defense forces. Yeah. No, that's... So that one, if you haven't heard me talk about it, in June, I'm looking to do basically a viewer request one. And so, well, one of the things I'm covering in June is definitely going to be something like an introduction to the Fallout series or the introduction to the Fallout universe for people who are newcomers. I've left space for a second video that would basically be something that could be from any or all of Fallouts, where it covers multiple Fallouts. So yeah, I do think it would be very interesting to cover basically what we know of the military within the Fallout universe. Now, yeah, that would probably be something that I should do in a game-by-game sort of a situation, because it's one of those things where I definitely have not played Fallout 1 and 2 enough to be able to adequately account for the military's... Hey, bud. Military's activities there. But so like in Fallout 3, you can find various spots where the military was hanging out, and groups of the National Guard, places like Germantown, for example. Obviously, you can also cover sites that were Enclave related. I think there's probably some, though, right? I mean, specifically, at the very least, we've got the story of the Brotherhood of Steel and its relation to the Mariposa military base. So, there's that little bit of stuff there. In terms of Fallout 3, again, you've got some little sites here and there. In Fallout 4, I would say in Fallout 4 you have significantly more. I mean, you have the APC that's found down here at the end of this. Yeah, Mariposa is probably the biggest thing there. You got the crash of vertibirds. You've actually got the USAF Station Olivia up here. You've got the military forces at the South Boston checkpoint. Oh, can't fast travel when enemies are nearby. I don't even know what enemies are nearby. I don't have to fast travel there anyway. I can just... We know that they're there. So yeah, okay. So there's not an enormous amount of new lore on the Blue Ridge Caravan or the Responders. At least not that I've encountered. Basically, I would say that... Oh no, there's a radio playing somewhere here. We got to get out of here before potential copyright strike. So yeah, the Brotherhood... Yeah, and so actually there is actually a little bit more lore on that specifically. In that, what you're saying there... I never know. I should really look into this if all the comments can be found when you rewatch the video. The stream, I mean. But... basically, if you're not aware, so the comment there was the Brotherhood probably integrated most of the military within Southern California. I think that's likely the case, especially with what we've seen in Fallout 76, where Paladin Romani was once a member of the National Guard until she was recruited by the Brotherhood of Steel. So the Brotherhood of Steel is not just Maxon and his the soldiers that were under his command. It's also other members of the military and groups like the National Guard as well. And not to say that the National Guard isn't part of the military, because especially in recent years we've seen that the National Guard has been deployed to war zones. But it's one of those things where, like, historically speaking, there was a long period of time where the National Guard was like, yes, it's there in the case we need them, but for the most part it was mostly there for things like civil unrest and disaster response and stuff like that. So I was specifically talking about like U.S. Army, U.S. Marines, U.S. Navy, U.S. Air Force, that kind of stuff. The Coast Guard also one of those things where it's like, yes, it is one of the military branches, but it's also so it's, at least in my mind, and I think in probably most people's minds, is so much more closely associated with things like rescues at sea and stopping drugs from getting into the country that it doesn't feel less much like a military organization. But again, that's not to say that it's not. But it's one of those things where it's like, when you have the Navy, which has aircraft carriers and nuclear subs and destroyers, and then you compare that to the Coast Guard, where they're like interdiction cutters and rescue helicopters and things like that. It's obviously, we're talking about different levels of military organization there. In the Glowing Sea, there's a ton of military presence. Yeah, it seems that way, at least some of it. There's that anti-missile site or whatever that's down there. Again, this character has unfortunately not been to most of those sites, so we can't really go look at them right now. But yeah, let's see here. Okay, so the new stuff on the Blue Ridge Caravan and the Responders, because I kind of cut myself off there. I've basically covered now the new stuff. Okay, I've not covered in a lore video the stuff about the Responders at the White Spring, but I have covered the existence of the Responders at Gilman Lumber Mill now with a new Surveil video. Yeah, the nuke pyramid thing. I can't remember what that's... Sentinel site? Something like that? But yeah, so the Blue Ridge Caravan obviously has new content since I made my video covering the Blue Ridge Caravan. And they probably actually do have enough of lore now to be worthy of another full-scale lore video. And I was trying to open up the map, but we're not in Appalachia right now. But basically, when I covered the Blue Ridge Caravan originally, they basically existed around the tunnel under the Savage Divide. I'm having trouble remembering the name of it off the top of my head right now. Which is funny, because I've done specifically 2 lore videos that have centered on that section. One covering the Reformed Raiders of the Savage Divide, and the Blue Ridge Caravan being the second one. But basically, that was what the Blue Ridge Caravan had to it. Now, there was also the stuff about the Blue Ridge Caravan and their relation to the Brotherhood of Steel, dealing with that Bish Company pipeline, and with Paladin Romani, and that kind of stuff. Yes, I think that sounds right. Big Ben Tunnel. Hey, Rye Hull Ridden. Sorry about having to cancel out the stream earlier. I saw you jump in there. It's just technical issues meant there was no sound coming through. In real life and seemingly in the Fallout, the Space Force was pretty good. Yeah, no, it's hard to tell exactly what's going on there, because it does seem like NASA was a different organization, something like the USSA or something like that. United Space Service of America, I don't know. But, yeah, that was definitely something more to it. I mean, we got Commander de Guerre for that. But you got to keep in mind as well that even in the days prior to the Space Force, the American astronauts were typically, like, in the real world, back in the 60s and 70s especially, we were talking about military members to begin with. They were basically out there. I think they were actually on loan from, like, the Air Force and the Navy and stuff like that when they were working for the, yes, United States Space Administration, thank you. They were effectively on loan from the military to the Air Force as astronauts, or not to the Air Force, to NASA as astronauts. And I think that was I think that's, you got to kind of keep that in mind when we're talking about people like Commander Sofia de Guerre. And that it's not necessarily the case that but at the same time, if you do, heck, we can go. Yeah, I love the For All Mankind series. I need to get back into that. The thing is, it's on Apple TV, which I'm not currently subscribed to. If you haven't watched For All Mankind, it's excellent. It's an alternative history where the Soviets land on the moon before the Americans. And so it's basically, it sets off this whole chain of events, which is really interesting. I actually love alternative history. I think my favorite one is from, I cannot remember his first name, Turtledove. Basically, the Civil War goes a completely different way because the orders that were found, if you're not aware, the Battle of Antietam, if I'm not misremembering, basically happened because the orders, these Southern orders were captured by the Union, and so they knew that where the South was going, and so they were able to intercept them. And so, because these orders are not found by the Union, the South effectively manages to get all the way to Philadelphia, I think, and force, because of that, it ends up causing the French and the British to come in on the side of the Confederacy, and effectively the South wins the Civil War by maintaining its independence. It's just a really interesting thing to where it's like, then Lincoln loses the presidential election because the Civil War has been lost. It's a whole big thing. And For All Mankind does a great version of that too, where it's like, because the Soviets beat the Americans to the moon, then there's this whole chain of events to where... Yes, I know, Princeton, I know. I'm not here for you right now. I'm here to look at the mural within the museum. But basically, because of that, Teddy Kennedy is not at Chappaquiddick the weekend of the moon landing, and so he does not have that massive scandal where he's killed Mary Jo Kopechne by driving drunk off the bridge. And so he ends up becoming president of the United States eventually, which means that he also then gives a contract to a contractor that was a political ally that was not really capable of producing a part, which then causes a Saturn V to explode on the launch pad. It's this whole... I love alternative histories where you consider the potential chain of events here. The reason we're here is specifically for this, the United States Space Agency, and seemingly there being soldiers on the moon. That's entirely the reason we're here. Yeah, Wolfenstein alternative history is also great. Let's see here. Russia would have declared war on France if they supported the Confederacy? That would have been interesting. Okay, let's see here. The placement of the nuke within Fallout 4... Because it was... Then it would make it between two state capitals, which would have made it harder for the U.S. Yeah, no, that's interesting. Still want the Blue Ridge Caravan to take over the old train posts? Yeah. No, I'd like that too. It just makes sense, right? Because of the Blue Ridge Caravan, it's entirely a merchant organization. It makes a lot more sense for them to take over those places and stop having the protectrons of the... I mean, now there are new responders, but the Raiders of the Savage Divide are no more. The Raiders of the Crater are not the Raiders of the Savage Divide. They were, but they're no longer. They don't occupy the same places. They're not even in the Savage Divide anymore. They're in the Toxic Valley. So, let's see here. Wolfenstein, yeah. Yeah, Wolfenstein, the new games that have come out with that have been excellent in terms of their alternative histories. I just love also, like, Wolfenstein 2 is great. Going up to the orbital platform over Venus and killing Hitler there. It's crazy. Okay, so again, I think we've kind of talked about some potential videos for Fallout 76. We're going to be covering potentially the Gleaming Depths, potentially maybe remaking an old video, potentially covering Charleston, potentially covering the Blood Eagles, maybe Atlantic City, we'll see something like that. The Blue Ridge Caravan Company also potentially, because again they've got enough new content I think to justify a video. Man in the High Castle, that's also great. Yeah, I did like Man in the High Castle as well. I'd never finished it, but it was one of those things where it was really disturbing. Like, honestly, really disturbing to watch. Like, this little American suburb where it's like, it kind of seems like normal 1950s America, and then it's like, oh, yeah, there are Nazis here. Oh, dog meat. Hello, dog meat.
Hey, boy. What are you doing out here all by yourself?
But along with that, we've got a potential video to cover in June, covering the military. And then, again, I'd probably like to cover the military in each game individually, and then maybe do a full video eventually, because it's one of those things where it's hard to tell until I really do the research on it to know if there's enough content to talk about what the military was up to in any one game individually. Yeah. No, yeah, and then there's the neutral zone around the Rockies. Fallout is a great alternative history as well. Although, again, as I've talked about before, I think it's an alternate universe rather than just like, oh, there's something that changed in our history. I think that there's different physics to it in terms of the way radiation and biology interact. But it's one of those things where it's like, if you were to say that the Fallout universe was an alternate history, I would like to know what is the event that causes the split in the timeline to take place. Because you always got to have at least that one event that causes the split in the timeline to take place. In For All Mankind, it's a Soviet scientist who was basically the mastermind of their rockets, I believe, died during a routine operation in the real world. And in the alternate universe, he did not die, and so the Soviets beat the U.S. to the moon in terms of getting people there. So I think we've got that pretty well covered, though. Again, what we'll cover in terms of Fallout 76. Or, again, not what I'll cover. What I'll put in the polls. I'll narrow that down, and then we'll go from there. Would you stop destroying that chair? I'm sorry, my cat, one of them, loves to destroy our furniture. But yeah, I think that pretty well covers it. Anybody have any more final comments before we close things out here? I got this guy back in 2020, and oh, thank you so much, Night Spirit. I really appreciate that. I think I need to do something for people that donate in the videos to where I basically consider them to have been subscribers or patrons for that month. Obviously, Night Spearhead, you already are a patron, so I appreciate you so much for that. But I maybe just for I got to do something where I basically jump you like up the list, because I don't know if you've noticed, but at the ends of the videos I've got the list of all the patrons, and I always list them from when I'm listing the patrons individually. I list them from earliest to last. Speaking of which, nah, I won't say anything about that. Never mind. But basically, so I start with mesothelioma and I end currently. Now it's going to be NB Mole Miner, because NB Mole Miner is a member again. But last time I made a video, it was Osborne and Bred 73, I think it was. But basically, yeah, when I list them, it's from first to last. But then when I put them in the full list, all the patrons and subscribers, I always put the... oh, thank you so much. I don't know what to put, 803. Is that the way you want me to refer to you when I thank you in the video? If so, I'll do that. If you got another name you'd prefer, I'll list that. But I put people in that list basically in the full list when it's top to bottom. At the top is the person that has given me the most, that is subscribed for the most, and at the bottom is the person who's subscribed for the least. I'm not to say that the people at the bottom I appreciate everything, honestly. You guys have no idea how much I appreciate it, because it's entirely because of donations from everybody, and every little bit makes all the difference in the world in terms of making it so I can actually make these videos. I mean, the computer that I'm making this stuff on, the computer I use to make these videos, I paid for entirely thanks to you all. I am so appreciative of everything you all have done, because there's no way in hell my wife would let me buy a new computer just to make videos if it was entirely just an exercise for my own amusement. It's because of you all that I'm able to do this kind of stuff. It's because of you all that I have the lights around the room here, that I can have like a nice vibe in this room when I'm making videos. It's because of you all that I have things like this microphone right here. And the software that I use to edit the videos and all that kind of stuff. Okay, clay it is. I need to make sure I write that down somewhere. Hey, I got a highlighter. Clay. I'm sure I'll be able to see that when I don't have a light that's yellow above me. Alright. In Fallout 76, there's a thing that said that this native group started in 10,000 BC, but in real life they started around 5. Yeah, so yeah, that would be interesting. No, yeah, absolutely. Because you got to keep in mind that you go back tens of thousands of years in the North America, and you've got glacial coverage in places. So it's one of those things. But again, going back to like, okay, let me write that down real quick. I've got to do something to thank you all that give in these streams even more than I do normally, because especially when, again, you're already a patron like Night Spearhead. I've got to find a better way to thank you all, and I've been trying to find other ways to thank people. I'm trying to find something that I can do for you all that does not necessarily take up additional time that I would otherwise be using to make videos, and that's the main concern when it comes to things like making merchandise or something like that. I don't need to... Oh, let's turn off that radio before we get any issues here. And by the way, if you haven't noticed, I specifically try to avoid putting any sort of mid-roll ads on anything, just because I personally hate mid-roll ads. So, as long as YouTube allows me to not put mid-roll ads on things, I will not do it. So, just to be clear here, I didn't used to have ads at the front of a video, I don't think. I only had them at the very end. One way or the other. My goal has always been try to put the minimal amount of ads on videos as I can. But at the end of the day, YouTube has been basically slowly amping up their level of control of where I can put ads, of where they put ads, I mean. And it's to the point where I'm willing to bet you within the next year, there probably won't be any more control on my end on whether or not mid-roll ads end up in a video. My bet would be that they end up putting them in regardless. So, let's see here. Yeah, no. I mean, when I was a kid, I would never have imagined something like YouTube being a thing. And the funny thing is, like, I still remember back when I was, like, 13, and there was some sort of, like, little, I think it was a Boy Scouts event. And it was one of those things where they were giving out those little awards, like, and it's not like a real Boy Scout award, but it's one of those things where it's like, when you look at, like, a yearbook and it's something like most likely to succeed, most likely to end up in prison or something like that. In my case, it was something where it's like most likely to be the person that will give you any news about what's currently going on in the video game industry, and that was the award that I got there. Now, I definitely have not kept up with the video game industry at large as much, but it's definitely something where I've always loved talking about video games. So... yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of those things where it's like, I don't watch a lot of stuff on YouTube. So, just to give you all an idea of, like, what I watch on YouTube. I used to watch Fallout lore videos on YouTube. I haven't since I've started making my own, specifically because I don't want to end up having somebody else's opinions become my own. So I used to watch Oxhorn. I don't watch him anymore. Not because of anything Oxhorn has done. I want to be clear about that. I think it's one of those things where I'm typically pretty forgiving when it comes to when people make mistakes, especially when they apologize and I feel that they've done so.
That's it.
In a real manner, and especially when it's something like in the case of Oxhorn, it was like something he said stupidly on the internet a long time ago, and it's one of those things where it's like, everyone says something stupid, and it's one of those things where in previous generations people didn't have themselves recorded all the time, and they weren't recording themselves all the time when they were teenagers and in their early 20s saying stupid stuff that they would never find appropriate when they're older. But again, I used to watch Oxhorn's lore videos. And I don't anymore, specifically just because I don't want to infuse my own views with his views. But yeah, I like. I watch this 18th century cooking channel called Townsend's. I love that one. It's great. He basically dresses up in 18th century clothing, and he makes dishes from the 18th century. Let's see what else I got here. I occasionally watch some of the like just general gaming commentary channels and stuff like that. Ryan George and all of his what's it called? Pitch meetings, all that kind of stuff. So that kind of stuff is that's a lot of the stuff that I watch on YouTube. Yeah. My wife was part of her yearbook committee, so I have a little bit of experience with that, not personally, but within the relationship here. Let me make sure I specifically write why I have Clay on here. Add to thanks. Again, hopefully that'll be more visible when I don't have a yellow and green light on above me when I'm writing with a yellow highlighter. And the weird thing is putting on this yellow and green light here makes me look like a normal color in the little camera there. Let's see though. Have I missed anything here? No, I absolutely enjoy watching, like, okay, so I have a handful of streaming services at this point, but I definitely find myself watching YouTube stuff on YouTube far more than anything on those. I think that's everything there. Oh, one of the other channels I would recommend, real quick here. Let me just go through my subs real quick. One of the other channels I would heartily recommend is the B1M. They cover large-scale building projects. Really interesting stuff. I mean, that's basically where I started getting most of the information I had about the I can't remember, the Orb in Las Vegas. I just watched a video they had the other day on Berlin's airport, which was pretty interesting. The Vile Eye, another channel I found interesting at times. It's one of those things, I don't watch every video that he puts out, but he basically talks about villains and evil within different forms of media. So, Spiffing Brit, always hilarious, covers all kinds of game exploits and things like that. One of the videos I watched of his recently was one where he made a Roman legionnaire that had more attack power than a tank within Civilization 7. Which was utterly crazy. Yeah, so I'd like to talk more about so the problem with covering individual creatures, like I could maybe talk about just general topics there in terms of like saying these are creatures that were created by FEV, you know, these are creatures that were created by something else like there. Yeah, no, Spiffing Brit is nuts. Absolutely. But I really do enjoy a lot of the exploit videos that he puts out, and I've actually made use of some of them before. So the ghouls, the problem is with the ghouls, the lore might actually be changing on them. And like, so there's also stuff where I think it's from the Fallout Bible where there was potentially something about FEV being responsible for the creation of ghouls. I can't remember if that was the case or if that was just somebody's fan theory, and that completely did not turn out to be the case at all. Who is that? There's one... Oh, yeah. Baumgartner Restoration. It's one of those... It's a guy, he restores paintings. Like, incredible work. His most recent one was a painting that was actually lifted by a tornado and thrown into a tree, and it had a giant hole in it. And he spent months with specialized tools stretching the canvas back together, and then he fixed all the... It's incredible. I absolutely... Again, that's Baumgartner Restorations. I absolutely recommend that kind of thing. So yeah, but again, the lore of the ghouls might be changing depending on what's going on with whatever that chemical is the ghoul's been swigging or injecting. So it's hard to really talk about that. But then there's other creatures where it's like the Mirelurks, where it's like, yeah, we can talk about what their origins are because we know that. I think but the problem is also with like the Mirelurks, I would need to review whether or not we know this information from in-game or if it's something that came specifically from Bethesda's website when they were talking about Fallout 3 back in the day. And they would be talking about like, oh yeah, Mirelurks, those come from the blue crabs of the Chesapeake Bay. So it's like, okay, so again, I need to learn, I would need to look into whether or not that's something specifically from the game or if that's just from Bethesda directly via their website. But at the same time, that also leads to the question of, okay, what the hell are Mirelurk Kings then? Why do they look like the creature from the Black Lagoon? And then why, in Appalachia, do they look like something else entirely? And why is it that Lake Lurks look like Mirelurk Kings? So it's, again, it's difficult to talk about those things specifically. So no information on the Animal Enclave. Yeah. Oh, and so there's other little bits of lore that that are difficult to get into, like the sentient species of raccoon that they experimented on with FEV. It's if you haven't seen this stuff, and this is stuff where I fully admit I have not encountered this lore personally speaking, because you have to find it within a bunker within Fallout, the first Fallout. But there's stuff about the early experimentation with FEV, and they experimented on a bunch of different creatures, and one of them was a raccoon. And with the raccoons, I think they had 5 of them, and 2 of them escaped. And these were super intelligent raccoons, and so there's likely some sort of like raccoon intelligent species living somewhere under California right now. And then there's other things where like there's just the lore is a little bit messy when it comes to some creatures, like the Deathclaw, for example. Now we know that those came from a form of gecko, Jackson's gecko, I believe is what it's called. But at the same time, it's like, why is it that there are intelligent Deathclaws in Fallout 2 that have like the ability to even speak? And then there's also the only other Deathclaws that really even come close to that are the ones that are directly controlled by the Enclave in Fallout 3. So it's difficult to really look into that kind of stuff and really know what's going on with that kind of thing. Alright, I think that we probably need to close things out, though, because it has nearly been, well, since I actually started all of this stuff, it's been about an hour and 45 minutes, and I'm sure my wife is actually getting a bit frustrated that I'm taking this long. I think it was the last video, if you watched it, she didn't know the cameras were still rolling. Yeah, Strangler Vines, another thing, what's going on with those? Long term, are they going to basically, I feel like they're going to have to do something to kill those things off, or they're going to expand past the confines of Appalachia. Is it possible there's one left of the command join the Enclave? I'm not sure I understand what you mean by that question, but oh yeah, one of the other interesting theories I've seen on the Enclave recently is the concept that some of the Enclave after the end of Fallout 3 ended up becoming the Gunners here in Fallout 4. Again, I have no concept of whether or not that's actually the case. But again, I don't think we have any actual stories on the origins of the Gunners. The other version of events that I like is that they were actually part of the experiment that took place at Vault 75. Oh, sorry. Let's see. Because in Fallout 76 there's a power plant mentioned where they were receiving orders. Yeah, no, that's definitely interesting. And that one's the... which one is that? That's the Monongah power plant, where it does seem like they were receiving orders at least a short time after the war, and they were told to basically cut their force in half and send the other force down a highway. So, I don't know. So yeah, I probably at the... I would need to, before I commit to doing a video on the military in general, I would need to investigate the military in each game and see if there's enough on the military in each game to maybe justify a video on the military in each game. And if not, then I could probably cover the military, at least... So in the same way I did all the craters in the 3D games in a video, I could probably do the same thing with all the military in the 3D games in a video. Yeah, but again, I don't think it's been a while since I've read that lore within the Nanga power plant, so I can't remember if they actually even list the name of the site they're supposed to be going to reinforce. And there's still other stories within Fallout 76 that have yet to be finished. Things like what happened to the governor. Yeah, I need to close things out. Yeah, okay. So again, I gotta go. So it's been good hanging out with y'all. We've got ideas as where to go with Fallout 76, where to go for the videos in June. And so I hope you all have a good weekend. I really do appreciate those of you who have joined Night Spirit. Thank you again both for being a patron and for the donation this week. Yeah, again, that's another interesting thing right there. That would be weird if the Legion joined the Brotherhood of Steel. It would help to explain maybe why the Brotherhood of Steel on the West Coast is significantly stronger by the time of the Fallout show. But now we gotta close things out. Again, it's been great hanging out with y'all. I really do appreciate it. This is Leo right here, by the way. Or as I call him, Monster, because he just constantly attacks me all the time. Anyway, though, I will see you all next time. I hope you all have a great weekend. And look for the Gunners video this next week, along with a Surveil video covering Black Mountain Ordnance Works. So... yeah, it's a good question of why they don't have any energy weapons. Or there's very few energy weapons, if I remember correctly. Anyway, yeah, there are energy weapons. Moldaver specifically has a pistol, I believe. But regardless, it's been great hanging out with y'all. I hope you all have a good weekend, and I will see you all next Friday.